Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christina Santos, and I am the Executive Vice President of the Student Government Association. Thank you all for being here today. The events in Ferguson, Missouri, and on Staten Island, along with others over the past few weeks and months, have again brought to the surface issues of concern about how we as Americans treat each other. I believe that it's important to look at different sides of every issue and to know that my perspective is not the only one. The intersection of our own behaviors, those of our judicial system and those of the men and women who protect and serve our communities must all be considered. The Faculty Senate and the Student Government Association arranged for this event because we together want to be sure that our campus's commitment to the creation of a more just world for all of us to remain a focal point in our conversations. In the past weeks, our college president, Dr. Calvin O. Butts III, has been sought by political leaders in the media for his opinions and advice about the ongoing debate on issues of race, equality, tolerance, and public safety. We will hear from him now. Ladies and gentlemen, SUNY College at Old Westbury, President Dr. Calvin O. Butts III.
Thank you, Christina. I'm very pleased to have been asked to come and speak to you as you participate in this vigil, as you express your dismay and your concern concerning the deaths of Michael Brown and Eric Garner, and so many more who have been killed as a result of excessive force used by police departments across the United States of America. I'm also happy that you've come together in a peaceful way, because whether it's by the police or by individuals from society, by the armed forces of nations, I think it is clear that all of us eschew violence. And one thing we do know that was articulated by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., that the United States of America was, when he made the statement, and remains one of the most violent nations in this world. I think that we have to continue to raise our voices of concern, not only about the level of violence in our world, but particularly about the level of violence in our nation, and violence especially directed against people who may be different than those who perpetrate the violence. It is very important, and certainly one of the most important results of education, that we maintain our civil democracy. And a civil democracy cannot be maintained without a well-educated population. And all of you who are students in the State University of New York, and especially here at the College at Old Westbury, are part of a process that seeks to make sure that not only are our voices heard, but also that our civil democracy is preserved. Michael Brown and Eric Garner and so many more did not deserve to die. They really should be alive today. And in both cases, their deaths came as a result of excessive police violence. What you're doing today by raising your voices here at the State University, even within the confines of our community, sends a powerful signal to many, not only in our region of Long Island, but in our city of New York and in the state of New York and in the rest of America, that we will no longer be silent in the face of these killings. One of the things that we've noticed about the protests around the nation, and that we notice about the protests here, is that these protests are made up of all races, all ethnic groups, both sexes, and people of different sexual orientations. These protests are made up by people from all religious backgrounds and those who do not believe in God at all. These protests are made up by all of us who find ourselves living under the social contract that we call the Constitution of the United States. There's something else that I want to make very clear. These protests are not against police departments. Nobody condemns the police. What we condemn and what we do not like and what we protest against are those police officers who commit heinous crimes and those prosecutors who fail in their responsibility to call these individuals into question so that their actions may be judged by a jury of their peers. Nobody's painting police departments with a broad brush. And let me be quick to point out that this is not something that I come to recently. I've been dealing with police violence against the citizens, especially of the city of New York and the citizens of this nation, for nearly 40 years. Some of you who are doing research in your classes may want to look at a case of a young man named Randy Evans, 1976. He was 15 years old and shot point blank in the head by a New York City transit officer. His name was Robert Torsney. He was, in fact, brought before a grand jury and indicted, but he was released, found not guilty, by reason of insanity. It was a year later that that verdict came down. He was sent to Creedmoor, a psychiatric hospital, and a year or less later he was released, saying that he was completely cured. Randy Evans still dead. And of course, this was a disease that no one had ever heard of before. Michael Stewart, for spraying graffiti on a subway wall, was beaten to death. Eleanor Bumpers, a grandmother, was killed in her own apartment. And the list goes on and on and on. Yvonne Smallwood, male and female. And by the way, with other names, black and white. I want to suggest to you that you keep the pressure on, because it's only through these nonviolent direct action protests that we create the climate of public opinion that will force our legislators and our executives in government to take the right action. It is also, as we direct our attention politically, important for you to know that politics without economics is symbol without substance. There can be no more business as usual. After we march and hold up our candles, then what? I suggest to you that one thing you can do is save your money. Even as students, we spend a lot of money. And if all of a sudden there was a noticeable absence of students, you've got to do what you need to do to survive. You got to buy gas to get back and forth to class. You don't want to fail. You've got to do what you need to do to survive. You've got to buy food for your children. You've got to do what you need to do to survive. You've got to clean your clothes. But yet there are things on which we spend money that we really don't need. You think $1 here or $1 there doesn't make a difference? If the students here started focusing only on necessities and not luxuries, you'd be surprised the impact it was making. You've got to begin to think creative. Politically, well, we don't live on Staten Island, Richmond County, so we do not vote for the district attorney there. But I guarantee you that there are people organizing to make sure that someone who did not represent the best interest of the people will have a challenge the next time he runs. And in Ferguson, you can't blame the police there for the district attorney. The people didn't vote. And if you don't vote, you see what you can get. There's so many ways to look at this. And for those of you who are studying, particularly in politics, economics, and society, or in psychology, or in history, or even in biology and physics, take a look at some of the past history. We don't march because these things are just one incident popped up. There are many. How many of you saw Fruitvale Station? There are many. And we don't know who can be next. Isn't that something? Any of us standing here, and particularly if you're black. And it doesn't matter whether you're male or female now. And so I'm happy that you're marching, and I'm happy that you're having the vigil. I'm happy that you're expressing yourself. And there's something else I want to say about the police. If someone sticks a gun in your head in the shopping mall, snatches your belongings that you just spent, I hope you don't buy any, and runs away, who are you going to call? Ghostbusters? You're going to call the police. If someone breaks in your home, or someone comes on campus and disrupts your room and takes your belongings, who are you going to call? You're going to call the police. And I want to emphasize that most of the men and women who serve in uniform are good people. They want fairness, they want equality, they want justice. And what we're calling for is the rule of law that will say no one's life is any more or less important than anybody else's. So we stand together as a nation of laws, as men and women who want justice, and those of us who want to live in a society to the best of our ability to make it so free of violence. No one should be subjected to what Eric Garner and Michael Brown went through. So I thank you, and as the president of this institution, I'm proud to be able to serve in this chair in a place where the mission of the institution is about seeking social justice. I want every student here to be able to stand as I'm standing today and speak clearly. We condemn no person for who they are or where they've come from. And we believe firmly that you should be judged by the content of your character, not by your religion, not by the color of your skin, not by your sex or your sexual orientation, but by who you are as a human being. And so thank you for allowing me to speak to you. And as you walk the walk in this vigil, I want you to think deeply that you're making a serious contribution. One final thing, just to tell you something that I'm a part of. I say hit them in the pocketbook. One of the biggest draws for New York is tourism. And one of the cities that's on the Democratic National Convention's list to be considered for their gathering at their next major convention is New York. Well, they may want to come to New York, but I'm going to tell them not to. And if they do, something else you ought to look up. And that's the Democratic National Convention of 1968 in Chicago, Illinois. The young people were so disgusted with war, violence, so disgusted with political corruption, that there was no place in Chicago that anyone could go where they would not meet up with demonstrators. And it was not the demonstrators who were violent, it was the police. One thing you can say about nonviolent direct action, it's anything but nonviolent, because evil cannot stand in the face of truth. And when you look across and you see black and white together, when you see men and women standing up from all various walks of life, you see truth on the rise. And so I thank you, and I appreciate what you're doing, and I stand with you. And prepare yourself now, because not everybody stands with you, but prepare yourselves for the debate, and know that you're right. Black and white together, we are not afraid. We're pressing for justice, and we know that we are right. And if we're right, we believe that we will be victorious. So God bless you. I'm not sure how we'll move next, Christina, and whoever else is leading us. But hold your candles. Think deeply about those who have lost their lives, how much we love this great nation of ours, and how we're determined to make sure that all of us can live together in peace. God bless you, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Butts, for those wonderful words of encouragement. And we will, in a minute, hold our candles high as we go on a symbolic walk. We'll go up the steps that across the walkway and down the steps, and we'll end by the wall over there. But before we do that, the remaining agenda will be, is Shekinah Corral here? Shekinah is here. So we'll hear from a wonderful song from Shekinah Corral. Then we'll invite students, staff, faculty to come up. And those of you who want to say a few words, say a few words. Okay? And then we'll walk, and those who want to post on the wall can post their words of encouragement on the wall. Okay? Shekinah Corral, thank you.
Small correction. We're some members of Shekinah, but we're not actually Shekinah. So tonight we want to sing a song, "A Change Is Gonna Come." From the 1960s, it was so powerful, and I just want you guys to listen to the words and listen to how relevant it is to today. I was born by the river in a little town, and just like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Yes, it will. It's been too hard to live in, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's out there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Change gon' come. I go to the movie and I go downtown. Somebody keep telling me don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Change gon' come.
Then I go to my brother. I say, brother, help me, but he winds up knocking me back down on my knees.
Oh, there have been times that I thought I couldn't last for long, but something keeps telling me to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come.
Change gon' come.
Oh, it's been a long time coming, but I know
Don't go away yet. Come back for 1 second. Because I introduced you incorrectly, and I think, you know, for those who don't know, it takes a lot of courage to get up here and sing in front of a room full of people with no music. That makes it even more difficult. So if you would just say who you are.
I'm Catherine Fowler.
Hi, I'm Erica Thompson.
Hi, I'm Keone Ransom.
Polite Wilson.
Try this one.
Polite Wilson.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, so we want to take a few minutes if there's anybody who has a few words that they would like to say, any thoughts they'd like to share. Now's the time. We invite you to come up, and we just ask that you keep it respectful and honor. Okay? Sure. Keep it respectful. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Daryl Bienemy. I'm a junior here. And first of all, I want to thank Mr. Butts for coming and speaking to us this evening. It's actually very important that we're able to hear from, you know, very knowledgeable people about social and civil issues from someone like yourself, and I thank you for that. And the first thing I want to say also is I understand there's a lot of mixed emotions about Eric Garner and Mike Brown. And the first thing that I want to try to express to people is that, once again, police officers, yes, they have a long history of abusing and using excessive force, but we really need to make sure that we make this as much about a police brutality issue than it is about people of different walks of life. We always want to say black, white, but that's really the biggest problem I think we have with, if we keep making this just a black issue, then what we're doing is that we're trying to narrow it down to one group of people. Yes, we can sit here, and most of us can sit here and say black people around this country have been victimized and abused and harassed by police officers, and there's a very big reality to that. But again, yes, black lives just matter as much as everyone else's lives, but we need to make this about everyone because that's what's going to make our message that much more stronger. And that's really the more important part of it, because there are people who may not be black that actually have the same problem. But if we keep trying to lead with this whole thing about black, people are going to feel discouraged to want to combine with other people who have the same mindset and ideals. And that's the first thing I want to say. And one thing, I think this is one hard thing for a lot of people to accept is, well, we have to try to work on our relationship with our local law enforcement. I know a lot of people always have this fear of the police, but they're people just like us. If you come from a neighborhood or whatever, you should be able to have the phone number of your local police chief, someone who works in the precinct to actually have some kind of dispute. We keep trying to victimize, we keep trying to make them seem demonized and all this and the third, but nothing ever gets solved when we treat people like they're not human. I mean, yeah, there are people who do the wrong thing, but we can't let, you know, a few bad apples spoil the whole bunch. So as much as we all want to be very militant and be vocal about how we feel and what we say, we have to try to make this once again, as much of an everyone problem and a police brutality problem. And lastly, I also want to mention that this Saturday is going to be a march in Washington, D.C. to the nation's capital. The NAACP of New York State are supplying buses to the march for free. If you want more information, you can email nysnaacp@aol.com. They're going to be having buses leaving from Brooklyn, the Bronx, Harlem, and Queens. As of right now, I know the Queens location, it's in York College, but if you want more information, I would say consult the NAACP webpage. They'll have more information about that. But, and another thing also a friend of mine brought up was, he said, when you go to these places and see all these protests, what is the ultimate goal? There's no clear or defined leader in sight. There's no specific agenda that everyone has. We just say, okay, a couple people were killed and we want to show that we're upset. Now, yeah, it's hard to see what the actual main objective would be, but I think half the battle is just being there. Because we can sit here and talk from the sidelines about this is messed up this and this is messed up that and how are they going to approach it, but you really won't know to play the game if you never put yourself in it in the first place. So for all of those who question, you know, what are the motives and what are the points of going to a protest or even participating in the showing we're having tomorrow from 12 o'clock p.m. to 12 a.m. here in the campus center, the Die-In, Just be there first and form that for yourself. I mean, if you feel that there isn't a clear message in sight that you may not agree with as much, find a respectable way of trying to share that with other people, and maybe there's other people who might believe the same thing with you. Now, call me crazy, but come Saturday when I go to this protest, honestly, I'm gonna look for whatever way I can get on the stage and say something. Call me crazy, I'll finagle my way, I'll sneak through the back, I don't care what I gotta do, but the point is, there are things that I believe that need to be spoken, and if I don't feel that people there aren't speaking it, then I'll do it myself. They say if you want something done, do it yourself, so we have to start taking that initiative. Instead of just crying and saying, okay, you know what, these people out here doing the wrong thing, why don't you try to go there and make an impact yourself? And I'm just saying, there's not much to say. If you're not a part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So emotional. As someone who is raising a son, as someone who has been the victim of police assault, it's so emotional. But I want to say that the student who just spoke was so eloquent. And we should be mindful, we should not forget, we should never buy into protests. Public sphere grievance doesn't mean anything, right? That's how people on the margins have often articulated their disillusionment with the body politic, right? And the other thing I want to say, when these things happen, there's often initially an initial reaction of the angry black man motif or black woman motif that African Americans shouldn't emote, and I agree that they should be done peacefully. But I'm steeped in slavery. A lot of my courses are about the antebellum period, the 19th century. And just to connect the dots a bit, just a little bit. And it's so emotional, everything that's happening. But part of the argument of pro-slavery advocates, the way they justified the institution, was to argue that slaves were happy, that slaves were content, that it was just a reciprocal relationship, labor for food, shelter, housing, right? Or food, shelter, clothes. And the Northerners, some white abolitionists, African-American slaves, when we really read what they were writing about, what they tried to articulate was that no, they were not happy. So if you went to the South and you heard slave songs, it didn't mean they were singing because they were jolly, but that was the early foundation of the blues. So when these things happen today and it happens in the news and we first catch wind of it, and there is the initial sentiment, don't overreact, don't protest violently, we know that the protests begin against violence, right? So it's interesting, I think, to see how these things get siphoned in the media. But I just wanting to connect those dots, that it's okay to emote as long as we do so in a civil manner, like Dr. Butt said, and like the student reiterated. But also, I think there's this thing, and just to reiterate quickly before I end, that protest, I'm tired of marching. I'm tired of protesting. What does that do? I mean, we really have to understand the legacy of public sphere grievance to really appreciate the change that being present and speaking with our bodies, what that does. You know, so we shouldn't be allowed to accept that. What does a protest do? I don't want to march anymore. Like, I hear that over and over again. We don't need to recall the March on Washington, right? So if a slave said he or she, and I'll end here, if a slave said he or she was happy, that they were often doing so for survival. And sometimes we have to allow ourselves, people, to become emotional, right? As I am, as I think about raising my son and my daughter as well. But I'm glad to see everybody here. You know, it warms my heart. Love you all. I'm emotional.
Hello, hi everybody. My name is Tom. I'm a senior here. And with everything that's been going on, I went and I wrote a sentimental spoken word poem I'd like to share with everyone. And before I do it, while I'm saying this poem, I want everybody to think, what does indivisible with liberty and justice for all really mean? Here it goes. I heard the other night about what happened in Ferguson. Killings and riots and a bunch of absurd events. I dream of a world where no one is murdering. To both the liberals and to the conservatives, I have a lot to say, but right now for words to give. This here's a motto, that everybody deserves to live. I'm sorry, Obama, but nothing is changing. All these excuses seem so verbatim. Oh, he was stealing, or it was self-defense. Well, taking lives makes that so relevant. And don't take race out the conversation. The black on black cliche isn't compensating. That's wrong too, and it's important. They're not talking about that at the current moment. This poem ain't a shot at law enforcement, just the ruling that night has got me mourning. I can't believe that there's no indictment, and it ain't surprising that people go on violent. Ferguson City has changed our mental state, but before we make bad things escalate, we need to think of Gandhi and think of MLK. And let's remember Nelson Mandela and Malcolm X when he came from Mecca. Rather than doing some big intifada, we should all be practicing satyagraha. There should be millions of us at this protest, because there's no telling who is gonna go next. To take a stand, now's the time, no Rolex, but carrying heat just leads to a gold death. And violence will lead to more deaths, and it will lead to more arrests. And again, this will make things justified. Peaceful protest, hope everyone abides. I'm not trying to be some kind of a model. It's just self-defense stories sound like novels. Where was that for Cece McDonald when she got hit in the face with the bottle? Then she protected herself with scissors. Mike Brown got shot for stealing scissors. Don't even get me started on George Zimmerman. Wow, I thought that we were all equal citizens. There was no need to go choke Eric Garner. I hope these death rates don't get any larger. This poem right here, it is a real rhyme. And when it comes to all of this crime, I'm just trying to go and knock the cycle down. Rest in peace, Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin, and Michael Brown. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, faculty, staff, and students. As a student here at SUNY Old Westbury, I have the liberty of seeing how everyone feels on social networks. Now, one thing that really upsets me the most is when people have, thank you, I'm short. When people say, well, you know, blacks are out killing blacks and nobody says anything about it. Well, we do say stuff about it, but my thing is when another race kills another race, it's not, oh, Hispanic on Hispanic crime or white on white crime. Black on black crime, in my eyes, was made up by the system, but my understanding is we all just need to come together and unite. No matter the race, no matter religion. I'm just piggybacking off of what everybody said, but in all honesty, we need to come together. History repeats itself. Do you guys not see that this is a revolution in the making as well? We need to come out, we need to step out. We are college students. When you look back at certain times in history, college students were fighting. Now we're too busy wondering about what Chris Brown and Karuchi is going through. Y'all need to open your eyes and see what is going on in our world and come out and speak on it. It's not only about black and black crime or white versus black. It's everyone together as a whole. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Marianne McConte. I'm a student here at SUNY Old Westbury. Everyone's points are very valid, of course, and just to piggyback off, I actually want to send a message to my peers because a lot of the people that I've seen vent on social media aren't here. And if they're not here because of class, that's fine. But if they're not here because they're sleeping, that's a different story because everyone should have known about this event. However, I was speaking to someone earlier today about the purpose of protesting. And the purpose of protesting is to raise awareness to issues that are going on in our society. I don't know how much awareness we have to raise for something that has been going on for years, because history does repeat itself, but this is not something that ever stopped. When I was young, there were stories about Amadou Diallo, and that touched me because as like an African whose parents are immigrants, Amadou Diallo could have been my cousin, my uncle, you know what I mean? So it touches all of us. Things like this happen, whether it's black people or white people or Spanish people. If you brown, purple, I don't really care what color you are, murder is murder. When people die, it shouldn't be justified in any way, shape, or form. That's how I feel. However, in order for things like these to stop, we have to be a part of the solution rather than just vent to our friends about it or talk to each other in our rooms about it. Like, we have to come out and actually fight for things. Like, I watch A Different World like every day. And anyone who ever grew up watching that show, those are college students who used to fight for causes on their college campuses. They used to organize protests and actually get things done. I don't see much of that here, and I'm glad that I'm starting to see it more. I just hope that we could see it even more, and us branching out, like just like Darryl mentioned about a walk happening on Washington. I feel like we need to take advantage of things like that. If anyone has time, make our voices heard all over the world, and just make sure that other people hear us and other people could join in for the fight. So thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to come up and speak? Yes, please.
Hello everyone, good evening. My name is Samantha Williams, and today I will just be reading small portions chosen from Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream speech. I am happy to join in with you today in what will go down in history in our greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. But there's something that I must say to my people who stand in the warm threshold which leads in the palace of justice. In the process of gaining a rightful place, we must not be guilty of the wrongful deeds. Let us not speak to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must allow our creative protests to degenerate into, we must not allow our protests to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must ride the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair, I say to you today, my friends. And even though we face difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up out of the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit together in the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi and the state of sweltering with the heat of injustice, swallowing the heat of oppression, will be transformed in the oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children one day will live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with this victorious racist, this over government having its lips dripping with the world, interposition and nullification, one day, right here in the US, that the black little girls and boys will be able to join hands with the white little girls and boys as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day everyone will be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places may be plain, the crooked places may be straight, and the glory of the Lord will be revealed, and all the flesh will be seen together. Ladies and gentlemen, today, as we come here, I just want everyone to remember the speech that was said back then, and how the same things are repeating now, and how we can come together with consistency, because consistency is the key to freedom. Thank you.
All right, everyone. I finally got the information for the buses. Once again, if you want more information to take the bus to the march in DC, it's this Saturday. You can go to nysnaacp.org. There are going to be buses. They're going to be leaving at 5:30 a.m. sharp. The bus is going to be leaving in Brooklyn from Borough Hall. Harlem is going to be at the Harlem State Office Building. The Bronx is going to be 149th Street and Grand Concourse. In Queens, the bus is going to leave at York College. Once again, it's at 5:30 in the morning. The buses are free. Once again, there's no fee or anything like that. The buses are free. They're going to go to Washington, D.C. It's going to take you there and back. If you want more information, you can go to nysnaacp.org, or if you want to email me, I'll forward you the information at dbien89@gmail.com. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Albert Backus, and I just wanted to say that if we want to get things done as a community, we have to look past the relationships we put so much emphasis on. I'm talking about the relationships as student to teachers, student to faculty member. We all have to look at ourselves as members of a larger college community that has made a dedication to the goal of social justice. And since we made that goal, we must all come together and work towards it as a whole. It can't just be, in a classroom, someone asks you a question and you talk about how enraged you are about this particular situation. We have to look together with our teachers and see what we can do to make this world a better place, because we're all citizens who have to strive for this for the rest of our lives, for not only our generation, but the generations that come after us, because we have a responsibility to the generations after us to make this world a world that they could be proud of. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Jeff Perez. I'm a senior at Old Westbury. I don't know if anybody has talked about it, but what Martin Luther King did in 1955, look, it's the holiday season, right? That's where consumers coming from. We gotta, if they're not paying attention to us, spread the word. Go on Facebook, go on social media, boycott the main retail stores. Send a message that we are not shopping while lives are dropping, okay? A famous person once said, after World War II, first they came for the trade unionists. I wasn't a trade unionist, so I did nothing about it. Then they came for the communists. I wasn't a communist, so I did nothing about it. Then they came for the Jews. I wasn't Jewish, so I did nothing about it. Then they came for the Catholic. I wasn't Catholic, so I did nothing about it. Then they came for me, and there was no one left. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jefferson Charles. I'm a freshman here who's kind of terrified to be up here to speak to everybody. But I feel like that pushed the reason why I came up here. I feel that people are too scared to say certain things that they don't want to be, that they don't want eyes on them. And I feel like that's why so much injustice happens. That's why I feel like Eric Garner was killed, because people were recording. Yeah, that was a necessity. But nobody spoke to the police officer. Nobody went to him telling him, please stop this now. No, nobody was saying anything like that. And I feel like the reason why nobody said that was because of fear. So, out of self-sacrifice, that's why I'm coming out here. So I could try to attempt to inspire everybody over here to fight against the fear that you have, fight against the fear that's weighing you down, and fight for something better, fight for progression. Try to make this world how you want it to be, how you want it for your future children, if you want children in the future. I don't really have much to say after this, but like I'm gonna say one more time, just don't let fear burden you, and just fight against yourself to fight for a better future. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Asim Khan. I'm a student here, and I was really not planning on speaking, but I think it's very necessary that I do. The fact that so much has happened, I mean, year by year by year by year, these, African Americans, people of color, are being mistreated. And the only way that we could really stop it, well, we can't change the past. The past is the past. We can't change the future. And I think that one way that we can change the future is that we could focus on education, educating ourselves, because whether the cop was racist or not, we can definitely say that he was ignorant of mistreating another human being, because I'm pretty sure that he would not like to be treated that way himself. So as long as we, stick together, educate ourselves, our family members, our friends, empower ourselves, because education is power. So with that, we can move forward. That's it. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Deshaun Riddick. I just want to come up and say something about the policy that the police departments are enforcing. A friend of mine had told me one day that, it's really about the people that they're hiring. I'm pretty sure that everybody here that's went for a job, they've had some kind of psychiatric evaluation in their testing. I think that we need to change the police department psychiatric evaluation, and that will prevent a lot of these things that are happening, like forceful use of chokehold. As you can see in the video with Eric Garner, that he really didn't have to apply that much pressure to him because he was already down, and he was a kind of a heavy fella, so he wasn't going to get back up that fast. No pun intended, I'm not making a joke. So it was a mob mentality when you watch the video and you understand what was going on. It wasn't needed for that many officers. There's countless videos out there with this type of brutality. And another thing is about what the gentleman said before, and even Dr. Butts, boycotting. A lot of people will be shopping for Christmas season and New Year's, and if no one shows up and spends their money, it sends a message loud and clear. Because when you follow the money, you find the problem and the source of the problem. So coming together and uniting together and boycotting together is a real way that we can see change happen in Congress. And those laws can be changed and implemented so that everybody can live safe and free. And one more thing before I go, I wanted to say that when you're pulled over by the police department or law enforcement, there's a new way that you're gonna have to live. And as a person of color myself, you have to be aware of your rights, yes, but you also have to not give them a reason to incite whatever it is that they may be feeling inside. Not all of them are evil. I have family that's in law enforcement, FBI agents and whatnot. Not all of them are of that mindset, but when you know your rights, and you know how to treat and deal with those types of people with that mentality, it makes it that much difficult for problems like, getting harassed, I'll say, to happen. So just keep that in mind and know what age it is that you're living in and how to move accordingly when you're pulled over. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Okay, so as we prepare to take our symbolic walk, I did want to mention I was just told that if you're unable to make it to Washington, D.C. on Saturday, that there will be a protest at Washington Square Park in Manhattan at 2 o'clock. Okay, so make it wherever you can make it. I just wanted to say that, it's very, it hurts when you see these things happening over and over again. People say, well, the country's not getting any better. I would tend to disagree from the standpoint that there was a time when the Michael Browns, the Trayvon Martins, the Eric Garners didn't even make the news. That was just, just another dead nigga and we move on, right? But now, at least it's front page news, it's discussion, there's social change, okay? And those things are very important. And the protests, the marches, I think what they do is put a very important spotlight on a very important topic. But my message to you, if you'll accept it, is think about what happens once that spotlight dims. Okay? Michael Brown won't be on the front pages forever. Eric Garner won't be on the front pages forever. And when they're no longer on the front pages, what happens then? So my challenge to you is to do one simple thing that a lot of people died for who didn't get mentioned, and that's vote. Vote. Because when you let your voice be heard, you become a force. And when you're a force, people have to listen, and people have to recognize. Okay? So don't let the spotlight dim. Keep the spotlight shining bright. Vote, vote, vote for whoever it is you vote for, whoever your heart is moved to vote for, but vote.
Hi, my name is Christopher Hobson. I'm a faculty member here, English department, and I'll just say one thing and make it very brief. The difference between 50 years ago and today, above all, is that at that time there was a massive movement out in the streets to change the United States and to institute justice. For a long time now, 2, 3, 4 decades, there has not been such a movement. And it's in the absence of such a movement that atrocities like the ones that we are protesting now have taken place. The events of the last 2, 3 weeks, as tragic and horrible as they have been, suggest the beginning of a movement. It's a movement that may involve voting, but will go, if it means anything, far beyond voting, and it will mean that you, the generation that are coming out now, will take the place of your elders and start in massive numbers moving the country as it has not been moved in 50 years. My hope is that this is a real movement, that it's a movement that grows, that it's a movement that swells, that it's a movement that reaches a peak next summer and then continues through the following year and reaches another peak and a greater peak the following summer, and so on. If there's a movement, then there is hope. Without a movement, there is no hope. But if there's a movement, then there's hope. And once that happens, we will find that we are not just talking about police violence, but we're talking about the degradation of the human being that lies behind the police violence. We're talking about the education that deems that person less of a human being. We're talking about the employment that deems that person less of a human being, and so on. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which was founded back in 1960, said that its goal was a social order of justice permeated by love. Those are beautiful words that I think we should keep in mind as we, I hope, start to move not just to change police conduct, but to change an entire society and the way it works. Thanks for listening.
You know, thanks so much, Dr. Hobson, because all of that was rolling around in my head and I couldn't put it together. But the piece that comes out for me is for people to understand who may be new to this mechanism and new to this process, that it requires a kind of patience. And I don't mean a patience with the injustice. For that, you should have no patience. But a kind of patience and understanding that it takes time to make sure other people come on board and that you don't give up in bringing people along all around you. That is a long process and requires your dedication to understanding the depth and the fabric of the injustice. And in that light, you know, we're going to be here tonight. We'll take our walk. There'll be the die-in tomorrow. There'll be some protests and demonstrations. But as students in particular, faculty too, but as students in particular, you have a right to ask your faculty to stop business as usual. As long as you're polite, you can be forceful, but you can ask people to address themselves to these issues. And if they don't, they don't. But don't give power the opportunity not to concede to that demand. It should be acceptable that over the next few months in this campus, along this campus, all around, this is what we're discussing and talking to each other about, so that we can build and build and build, and my heart is with you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Laura Lemus. I'm a SUNY Westbury alumni and now working full-time for a nonprofit. And what I want to invite all of you college students is to look to get involved with, this is great. I am so glad that this is happening on campus and giving you the opportunity to participate, but also look beyond college campus. And I invite you to look into local nonprofit organizations or local community sites or community groups that are also working on this and on other topics, on other social justice issues. Really take the time to look into where you can use your talents and your passion and help the rest of the community outside of college. And my invitation is that once you start on this community organizing social justice work, you'll really realize how empowering it is and how much you can give back and how much it means to go to these protests and these actions. So I invite you to look into that further and to really get involved in your community and to get involved beyond this college campus so that you can be in it for the long haul. Thank you.
Okay. Are our singers still here? Did they leave? Is anyone here? No? Okay. So it's time to walk. Okay. So I encourage all of you to hold your candles high. We're going to go up the steps to your right, across the platform, outside the cafeteria, down these steps, and then to the wall. And if anyone has anything they'd like to post on the wall, that's your opportunity to do that. We thank you so much for being here. This is wonderful. Keep the spotlight burning.
I was born by the river in a little town, and just like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Change gonna yes, it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die, 'cause I don't know what's out there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Change gon' come. I go to the movie and I go downtown. Somebody keep telling me don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know